story. Mysterious 4. Chan Stories, The White Man, RV Horror Stories. Hey there, you twisted souls who can't get enough of the dark stuff. Welcome back to another dive into the shadows, where the air's cold, the nights are long, and something's always watching. I'm Sam, your guide through this messed up tale, and tonight, I've got a story that's been gnawing at me since I was a kid. It's about my dad, Jack, and a thing he called the White Man. Not some campfire ghost or fairy tale boogeyman. This was real to him, real enough to haunt every winter of his life, and maybe mine too. So grab a blanket, lock your doors, and let's step into the frost together. This all starts way back before I was even a thought, up in the wilds of Minnesota. Jack grew up in the Upper Peninsula, a stretch of nowhere where the snow falls heavy and the woods stretch forever. It's the kind of place that feels alive in the worst way, trees creaking like they're whispering, wind howling like it's got a grudge. He was a kid from a dirt-poor family, raised in a cabin that was more shack than home. His folks were religious, the fire and brimstone kind, and his old man was a mean drunk who left scars. Some you could see, some buried deeper. Jack wasn't bright, not in the book-smart way, but he was tough, stubborn, the kind of guy who'd stare down hell itself if it came knocking. He was 10 that first time, out hunting with his brother Mike. My uncle, the only family I ever met from that side. They were kids, barely old enough to hold a rifle steady, but out there you grew up fast or not at all. It was January, the dead of winter, and they'd wandered too far from home. The sun dropped fast, leaving them lost in a sea of white, the cold sinking into their bones. They weren't dressed for it, no heavy coats, no gear, just dumb kids thinking they'd bag a deer and be heroes. Then the ground betrayed them. Mike stepped wrong, and the ice cracked beneath him, a frozen pond hidden under the snow. He went under, thrashing, screaming, and Jack, not the sharpest tool, stood there a heartbeat too long before jumping in to help. The water was a knife cutting through their clothes, stealing their breath. Jack hauled Mike out, both of them soaked, shaking, half dead already. They crawled to a tree, found a hollow under its roots, and huddled there, too small a space for two. Jack, wetter but tougher, took the outside, letting Mike curl up inside. They were done, lost, freezing, no way home. That's when Jack heard it. Footsteps, big, heavy, crunching through the snow. He squinted into the dark, expecting a hunter, a neighbor, someone with a flashlight. But there was nothing, just the sound getting louder, closer, until he saw it. A shape, white as the snow itself, stepping through the trees. 9 feet tall, maybe more, built like some stretched-out doll. Arms, legs, 2 black eyes, but no face, no details, just smooth and wrong. It didn't rush, didn't stumble, just glided toward him, steady as death. Jack froze, heart hammering, too scared to scream. Then it spoke, not with a voice, but inside his head, words slithering into his skull like ice water. Old thing, it called itself, lives in the cold, needs you. Said it came for the lost, the hurt, the ones teetering on the edge. Took them away if something else didn't first. It wanted Jack and Mike, told him to get up, follow it into the dark. Jack wasn't having it. No, he thought back, stubborn as a mule. I don't want to die. He don't either. The thing pressed, its voice like a salesman with a bad deal. Easier this way, simpler. But Jack dug in, refused to budge. It sounded surprised. Most folks didn't argue, I guess. Finally, it offered a trade. You go free now, it said, But your lives are mine. Interest owed. I'll come back. Jack didn't get it, not fully, just knew he didn't want to follow. So he agreed, desperate, and the thing turned, leading them out. Not as itself, though. It shrank, twisted, became a rabbit white as bone, hopping through the snow. Jack woke Mike, and they stumbled after it, chasing those tiny prints until they saw lights, neighbors out searching. They got home, got a beating from their old man, but they were alive. Mike swore it was just luck, no monster, no rabbit. Jack knew better. That's where it started, that first mark in the snow. Jack said those prints weren't right, too shallow, too vague, like something heavy walked light. He saw them again a year later, out feeding the hogs with his dog Shorty, a scrappy little beagle mix, his only real friend besides Mike. The barn door was open, wide and wrong in the dead of winter, but the pigs were still inside, huddled tight, scared. Shorty sniffed once and bolted, barking like mad, chasing something out into the night. Jack followed, found the dog's tracks veering off, no pig prints to match, just those same damn dents, big and faint, leading over the fence into the woods. He ran after them, heart pounding, and there it was, the white man, bigger now, holding a squealing hog like it weighed nothing. Shorty snarled, fearless, but the thing just stood there, staring at Jack with those black eyes, flashing a slit of a mouth full of teeth. No words this time, just a feeling, like it wanted him to see, to know it wasn't done with him. Then it took off, hog and all, vanishing into the trees. Jack called Shorty back, sobbing all the way home, too shaken to tell anyone but Mike. Got in trouble for losing the pig, but he knew it wasn't his fault. That thing was real, and it was hungry. So there's your beginning, folks. 2 kids in over their heads, a deal struck in the dark, and a shadow that wouldn't let go. Jack thought he'd dodged it, thought maybe he'd dreamed it up. But those winters kept coming, and so did the white man. Stick around, because this isn't just some old tale. It's my family's curse, and it's only getting colder from here. Hey, you're still with me. Good. I warned you this wasn't gonna be a quick scare, didn't I? This thing with my dad, Jack. It's a slow burn, the kind that creeps up on you like frost on a window pane. Last time we left him shaking in the Minnesota snow, a kid who just made a deal with something he didn't understand. He thought he'd walked away clean that night, him and Mike stumbling home under the neighbors' flashlights. But out there in the dark, something had latched onto him, a debt, a shadow, and it wasn't letting go. Let's step back into that cold, because it's about to get heavier. Jack was 12 when it came back. A year had passed since that night under the tree, and he'd almost convinced himself it was a nightmare, some trick of a half-frozen brain. Almost. Winter rolled in again, meaner than before, the kind of cold that cracks trees and freezes pipes solid. He was out in the hog barn one night, a rickety thing a half-mile from the house, far enough that the stink didn't drift indoors. Shorty, that scrappy beagle mix, trotted at his heels, nose to the ground. The hogs were restless, snuffling and grunting, but Jack didn't think much of it. Just figured they hated the weather as much as he did. Then he saw the back door, wide open, swinging in the wind, snow piling up inside. It should have been latched tight. Pigs don't stay put otherwise. But there it was, gaping like a wound. He stepped closer, expecting to see hoof prints, a trail of runaways he'd have to chase down. But the hogs were all there, crammed against the far wall, eyes wide like they'd seen the devil himself. Shorty froze, hackles up, then bolted out the door, barking like he'd caught a thief. Jack yelled after him, but the dog was gone, swallowed by the storm. He followed, boots crunching, and that's when he saw them. Those prints again. Not Shorty's little paws, not hog tracks, but those big shallow dents, the ones that didn't make sense. They stretched out from the barn, over the 5-foot fence like it was nothing, into the woods beyond. Jack wasn't bright, but he wasn't a coward either. He climbed that fence, picturing Shorty out there alone, and ran, the wind clawing at his face. The barks led him deeper, mixing with a hog's panicked squeal, until he broke into a clearing and saw it. The white man, taller than last time, maybe 10 feet now, holding a thrashing boar, one of their big ones, easy 400 pounds, like it was a rag doll. Its arm didn't bend right, just stretched, gripping tight. Shorty was there too, snarling, teeth bared, darting around like he could take the thing down. Those black eyes locked on Jack, and a slit opened below them. A mouth, long and thin, flashing teeth that gleamed like ice in the moonlight. No words this time, just a feeling, heavy and cold. It wanted him to see this, to know it was here, collecting. Jack's stomach twisted. He knew that hog wasn't coming back. Then it moved, fast and silent, vanishing between the trees with the pig still squealing. Shorty lunged after it, but Jack grabbed him, hauled him back, tears freezing on his cheeks. He didn't tell his folks, couldn't. Got a beating for losing the hog, but Mike was the only one who heard the truth. "You're nuts," Mike said, shaking his head. "Ain't no snow monster stealing pigs." Jack didn't argue. He knew what he'd seen. After that, it was like the white man had a schedule. Every winter, something went missing. A hog here, a clutch of chickens there, always in the night, always when the snow fell thick. One year, it skipped the farm. A kid from town, some hunter's boy, vanished in the woods instead. They found his rifle, his pack, but no body, just those shallow dents leading nowhere. Jack didn't say it out loud, but he figured the white man had a taste for more than livestock. "It eats," he told me once years later, his voice low. "Don't know what else, but it ain't picky." By 16, Jack was bigger, tougher, but the fear stuck. He'd started driving, working late at a gas station 10 miles out, a rusted pickup his only ride. He hated it, hated the ice, the dark, the way every shadow looked like him. One night, a blizzard hit, road slick as glass, and he saw a car in the ditch, some poor bastard who'd slid off. Jack pulled over, too good a guy to keep going, but too bad a driver to stop clean. His truck spun, smashed a tree, and his leg got pinned, blood soaking his jeans. The other driver, a skinny guy in a coat, climbed out, checked on him. "I'll get help," he said, and took off toward town on foot. Jack watched him go, figuring an hour, maybe 2, and he'd be out. Midnight ticked by. 1 a.m., 2, 3. No lights, no tow truck, just the wind and his chattering teeth. Then he heard it. Footsteps, big and steady, cutting through the storm. He thought it was the guy, maybe someone else, and dragged himself up to peek through the cracked windshield. Nothing. Just snow and trees. But the sound kept coming closer until a shape loomed out of the dark. Long, white, graceful, like it belonged there. The white man stopped, stared, those black eyes boring into him. Jack's breath caught, fear choking him silent. It spoke, sharp and quick in his head. "Don't worry. Already paid. Paid." He didn't get it, not then. The thing crossed the road. Funny thing. Jack always said it looked both ways first, like it cared about traffic, and melted into the woods. Jack broke down, sobbing until the mailman found him at dawn, half frozen. They towed the truck, patched his leg, but that other driver never came back. Cops searched, found nothing, no tracks, no sign. Jack knew, though. That guy was the payment, and the white man had cashed in. He tried to shake it after that. At 19, he and Mike joined the Marines, desperate to ditch Minnesota's endless winters. Thought maybe the white man couldn't follow, that Texas heat would burn it off. Basic training was hell, but no combat. Mike got booted for a bad foot. Jack stuck it out, cooking for grunts on bases. He begged for warm posts, landed in San Antonio, and for a while it worked. No snow, no dents, no grinning monster. Then a freak storm hit. 2 days of ice and flurries, and there it was, standing in a field, white against the gray, watching him shovel paths like it had never left. That's when Jack knew. It wasn't tied to Minnesota. It was tied to him, to the cold, to that damn deal he'd made. And it was patient. Patient enough to wait years, to follow him across states, to take what it wanted when the time was right. He was out of the Marines by then, back in Minnesota one summer, to help his mom after his old man dropped dead in the hog pen. No surprise there. But winter was coming, and with it, the white man. Jack wasn't just scared anymore. He was trapped. Hey, you're still hanging on. Brave move. This story's like a Minnesota winter. Long, cold, and it doesn't let up. Last time, we left Jack running from the white man, chasing a fool's hope that Texas heat could shake it loose. He was wrong. That thing didn't care about state lines or sunny skies. It followed the snow, followed him, patient as death itself. By now, he's out of the Marines, back in Minnesota one summer, to clean up after his old man kicked it, and he's itching to get away for good. Let's step into the next chapter where the cold finds him again, and this time it's personal. Jack was 28 when he met Lisa. She wasn't from Texas, born and bred in Ohio near Cleveland, where her folks had a big house and a bigger bank account. They crossed paths in San Antonio, her on some holiday trip, him slinging hash at a diner after his contract ran dry. Lisa was sharp, tough, didn't take crap from anyone, least of all Jack, with his quiet hick charm and nervous eyes. She didn't want kids, never did, and Jack didn't push it. They hit it off, got hitched in a January courthouse wedding, figuring the winter might hold something good for once. He should have known better. A year later, Lisa's lease was up, and she wanted to head north, back to Ohio for the holidays, to show off her new husband to the family. Jack's gut twisted at the thought. Ohio wasn't Minnesota, but it had winters. Real ones with snow deep enough to bury secrets. He'd seen the white man in Texas, that freak storm proving it could find him anywhere the cold touched. Now she was dragging him straight into its jaws, and he couldn't tell her why. Demons? He asked her once, testing the water. You believe in 'em? She laughed, said no, called it crazy talk. That shut him up fast. So he played it off, said he was just jittery about meeting her folks, and followed her north, heart pounding every mile. They got to her parents' place a few weeks before Thanksgiving, a sprawling house outside Columbus, all brick and money. Lisa's family took to Jack quick, her dad slapping his back, her mom piling his plate high, and he tried to relax. But the air was turning, that crisp bite creeping in, and he couldn't shake the feeling he was being watched. One night, he woke to ice glazing the windows, thin and sharp, and swore he saw a shape in it, vague, humanoid, darker than the frost. His breath hitched, but it was gone when he blinked. Maybe he was losing it, he thought, wrapped too tight in his own fear. Then Thanksgiving hit, and the snow came with it. It started light, a dusting that had Lisa's uncle, some city guy, not Mike, joking about getting snowed in. Jack edged to the window, peering out as the gray sky thickened, flakes swirling down. The house was packed, 40 people, loud and laughing, a holiday mess of food and booze, but all he could hear was his own pulse. He flipped the TV to the weather, ignoring the groans, and saw it. A storm, big and mean, rolling right over them. Lisa tried to smooth it over. He's from Minnesota. He's seen snow, just hates it. But Jack was unraveling. He owed that thing out there, owed it years of dodging, and now he was trapped in a house full of people he couldn't warn. She pulled him upstairs, away from the stairs, and told him to cool off. "Stay put till dinner," she said, sharp as a blade, and left him in a bedroom overlooking the backyard. A short iron fence, an empty lot, then woods stretching into the dark. He paced, eyes flicking between the window and the wall, trying not to look. The snow piled up, 6 inches by dusk, and he was a wreck, sweating, shaking, waiting for it. Hours dragged on, the party humming below, and he started to think maybe it wouldn't show. Maybe he was safe this far from home. He stepped away from the window, exhaled, then caught it. A flash of white against the trees. His stomach dropped. He crept back, peered out, and there it was. The white man, smaller than before, but still too big, too wrong, standing at the fence. Those black eyes locked on him, that slit mouth twitching like it knew something he didn't. It didn't move, just waited, daring him to come out. Jack's mind screamed no, but his legs moved anyway. He couldn't hide forever. Not with Lisa, her family, all those lives tangled up in his mess. He'd scream if it grabbed him, he told himself. Someone would hear, someone would save him. So he bundled up, slipped downstairs through the drunk and drowsy crowd, and stepped into the storm. The snow was thick now, falling fast, and the white man loomed bigger, feeding off it. Jack faced it, boots sinking, breath fogging the air. It spoke, voiceless, straight into his skull. "You left. Debt's due. Contract stands. Or I take you and Mike now." Jack shot back, cocky for once. "I'll move to Hawaii, somewhere you can't touch." The thing's mouth stretched, a grin that wasn't funny. "Mike won't. Others won't. Snow finds you anywhere. Here you are." It reached out, fast as a snake, but time slowed. Enough for Jack to yell, "Wait!" He didn't want to die, didn't want Mike dragged in. "Another deal," he blurted. The white man paused, intrigued. "Impressive or nothing," it said. Jack blanked. Nothing to offer, no tricks up his sleeve. It stepped in, offered instead, "You let me take what's owed." "Your interest." Jack nodded, numb, thinking it meant him. The thing's mouth split wide, deal done, and it turned, vanishing into the woods, leaving those shallow dents to fill with snow. He stumbled back inside, rattled, sure he'd screwed himself. Weeks later, Lisa got sick. Real sick. Hospital runs, hush doctors, and the truth. A miscarriage, botched, infected, nearly killed her. She pulled through, but they said she'd never have kids. Jack broke, sobbing apologies she didn't understand, convinced the white man had taken that unborn life as payment. He never told her, just carried it, guilt and fear, heavy as the snow outside. They stayed in Ohio after that, Lisa wanting her folks close, Jack too torn to argue. He thought the debt was settled, that maybe he'd bought some peace. But the white man wasn't done, not by a long shot. That winter was just the start. and it was coming for more. Hey there, you're still with me. Tough as nails, huh? This story's like a bad dream you can't shake, and we're not even halfway through the dark yet. Last time, Jack thought he'd paid his dues, trading an unborn kid to that grinning white man in the Ohio snow. He was wrong. Dead wrong. That thing didn't just take and go. It lingered, waiting, like a wolf circling a campfire. Let's step back into Jack's world, where the cold's about to cut deeper than he ever imagined. They stayed in Ohio after Lisa's scare. Columbus suburbs, a quiet sprawl of new houses and old fears. Lisa's folks pushed them to settle close, and Jack didn't fight it. He got a job at a warehouse hauling boxes while Lisa nursed her wounds, physical ones healing, the others festering quiet. She didn't want kids before, and after the doctor said she couldn't, she leaned into it hard. Her parents, though, they wouldn't let it go. You need something to love, her mom said, and dropped $800 on a dog, a white borzoi, all long legs and Russian grace, shipped in like royalty. Lisa named it Duke, and damn if she didn't love that mutt more than Jack half the time. 4 years in, December hit, and the snow came heavy, 2 feet overnight, wind screaming through the trees. Jack was twitchy, same as always when winter rolled around, but Lisa didn't notice. She was too busy with Duke, who'd been pacing by the back door, whining like he'd seen a ghost. Borzoi don't bark much. They're hunters, silent and sleek. But that night, Duke let out a sharp yelp and bolted when Lisa cracked the door. The yard was fenced high, snow piled against it, and he cleared it like it was nothing, chasing something into the dark. Lisa yelled after him, barefoot in her robe, and Jack grabbed his boots, shotgun in hand. She saw it first, a white blur streaking across the snow, too fast to be a cat. Just a stray, she called, but Jack's face went gray. He knew that shape, that speed. They stumbled out, following Duke's prints, the snow swallowing their knees. The trail led to the woods behind the house, thick pines, no streetlights, just shadows and silence. Lisa's flashlight danced over the ground, picking up Duke's tracks, then those dents, big, shallow, wrong. Jack's gut churned. He'd seen them too many times. They heard it, a yelp high and cut short, echoing from deeper in. Lisa ran, screaming Duke's name, but Jack lagged, eyes on those marks. The prints stopped at a tree, Duke's collar dangling from a branch, snapped clean, too high for a dog to reach. Lisa broke, sobbing, begging Jack to keep looking. "He's gone," he said, voice flat, pulling her back. She thought he meant the cold got Duke, but Jack knew better. The white man had collected, and that night, staring out the kitchen window, he saw it, huge, white, blocking the moonlight, teeth glinting in that slit mouth. It didn't speak, just stared, and Jack felt it. Another offer, silent and heavy. He turned away, locked the doors, and prayed it was over. It wasn't. A year later, Lisa got pregnant. Impossible, the doctor said. But there she was, carrying twins. Jack was a mess, hope warring with dread. Winter came early that year, a blizzard tearing through Ohio the night she went into labor, weeks too soon. He drove her to the hospital, tires slipping, snow blinding, and swore he saw those dents along the road. The white man was there, blocking the way, its voice slicing into his head. 2 boys. Give me them, and the debt's clear. Jack gripped the wheel, shouted no, and floored it, barely making it through. We were born that night, me, Sam, and my brother Tommy. Small, fragile, but alive. Jack thought he'd won, thought he'd kept us safe. Weeks later, he woke to a draft, Found the nursery window wide open, snow drifting in. Tommy was in his crib, cold, still, gone. Doctors called it SIDS, sudden and senseless, but Jack saw the truth in that open window. Lisa saw it too, shut it before the cops came, both of them silent about what they knew. She didn't cry much after, just stared, hollow, like something broke inside her that night. Jack told me later, when I was old enough to hear it, that the white man took Tommy because he'd said no. Should have known, he'd mutter, eyes on the floor. It don't ask twice. Lisa's folks got her another dog that spring, a black borzoi, scrappy and loud. But it wasn't Duke, and it didn't fill the hole. I grew up with that mutt, but Tommy's shadow hung over us, a quiet ache nobody talked about. Jack stopped praying after that, stopped believing anything could save him. The white man wasn't just a debt collector, it was a predator, and it was playing for keeps. Winters kept coming, and so did the losses. Grandma, Lisa's mom, wandered off one snowy night, found frozen in a ditch a mile from home. Her dog vanished the same year. No tracks, just gone. Then Lisa's brother Pete drove off a bridge in a storm. No body, just a wrecked car in the Scioto River. Jack didn't say it every time, but I saw it in his face. Those dents, that grin, the white man's mark. He'd sit by the fire, staring out, waiting for the next knock. And me? I was just a kid, watching it all unravel, wondering when it'd turn my way. Hey, you're still here. Got a stomach for the dark, don't you? This tale's been clawing at us, slow and steady, and it's about to get uglier. Last time, Jack lost my brother Tommy to that grinning white man, a debt paid in crib sheets and silence. Lisa broke that night, and the cracks just kept spreading. We're in Ohio still, the Columbus sprawl, where the snow falls heavy and the shadows don't let go. Let's walk into this next stretch. It's where the cold turns meaner, and the family starts to rot from the inside. I was 5 when Lisa started drinking. Not a sip here or there. She dove in, bottles of cheap gin piling up like snowdrifts in the kitchen. Losing Tommy did something to her, something Jack couldn't fix. She'd never wanted kids, said it over and over, but having us, then losing him, twisted her up worse than the doctor's knives. I'd catch her staring out the window, that black borzoi, Rex we called him, curled at her feet, her eyes glassy and far away. Jack tried to pull her back, gentle at first, then desperate, but she'd just shove him off, voice sharp as ice. "Leave me alone, Jack, you don't get it." He got it, though, more than she knew. Every winter he'd watch the snow pile up, those shallow dents showing up in the yard, and he'd flinch like a kicked dog. He stopped talking about the white man much, like saying its name would call it closer. But I saw the fear in him, same as I saw the gin in her. They were drowning, both of them, just in different ways. Me, I was a kid, stuck watching it happen, too young to do anything but feel the chill creeping in. 10 years after Tommy, it came for her. I was 15, lanky and quiet, the kind of kid who blends into the walls. Winter hit hard that year, January, snow thick enough to bury cars, wind howling like it wanted in. Lisa was worse than ever, barely leaving the couch. Rex gone by then to some sickness Jack blamed on the cold. One night she grabbed her keys, bottle in hand, and stumbled out. Jack yelled after her, "Where are you going?" "It's a damn blizzard." She didn't answer, just slammed the door, tires spinning as she peeled off into the dark. He didn't go after her. Said later he knew she wouldn't stop, wouldn't listen. I sat up with him, both of us staring at the clock, the fire dying in the grate. Dawn came, gray and silent, and the cops knocked. They'd found her car in the Scioto River, half submerged, ice cracked around it like a spider web. No body, just the gin bottle, floating empty, and those damn dents along the bank, faint but there. Jack didn't cry, didn't say much, just nodded, like he'd been waiting for it. He took her, he whispered, so low I barely heard. Debt's done now. I didn't buy it, not then. Thought she'd just crashed, drunk and lost, like her brother Pete years back. But those dents stuck with me, and the way Jack looked, hollow, resigned, it planted a seed I couldn't shake. After that, he was different. Quit the warehouse, let the house go to hell, just sat by the window every winter, waiting. I'd ask, "You okay, Dad?" He'd grunt, "Fine, Sam." But his eyes said different. He wasn't living anymore. He was marking time. 3 years later, I was 18, out of high school, ready to ditch Ohio and its ghosts. Jack was 54, gray and worn, a shell of the hick who'd fought his way out of Minnesota. That December, he took the truck out, said he needed air, needed to think. I didn't stop him, figured he'd be back, same as always. Night fell, snow piled up, and he didn't come home. Cops found him the next day, truck off the road, flipped in a ditch. No skid marks, no ice, just a clean drop, like he'd driven straight into it. He'd frozen out there, alone, and I couldn't help wondering if he'd seen those dents one last time. We buried him quick, me and my sister Ellie. She'd moved out years back, closer to Lisa than I ever was. Standing by that grave, snow dusting the dirt, I thought it was over. The white man had taken everything, Tommy, Lisa, Jack, and left me standing. But then Mike called. Uncle Mike, back in Minnesota, the only one left from Jack's old life. "Sam," he said, voice shaky, "I saw something last night." White, tall, out by the barn. Heard steps, but no tracks. I froze, phone tight in my hand. He laughed, nervous. "Your dad's crazy stories, huh?" "Got to be that." I didn't laugh back. Hung up, stared out my window, the snow falling soft and steady. Jack was gone, but that thing wasn't. It had followed him from Minnesota to Ohio, taken what it wanted, and now it was sniffing around again. I checked the locks that night, double, triple, like a kid scared of the dark. Maybe it was over. Maybe it wasn't. All I knew was I was done with snow, done with the cold that carried it. Time to move, I thought. Somewhere warm, somewhere it couldn't reach. But deep down, I wasn't so sure it'd let me go that easy. "Hey, you're still here. Guess you're as hooked on this nightmare as I am." We've walked a long road through Jack's mess, haven't we? Last time, he went out into the Ohio snow and didn't come back. Froze in a ditch, left me and Ellie to bury him while Mike's voice rattled in my head, talking about white shapes and empty tracks. I thought it was over, thought the white man had chewed up my family and spit out the bones. But the cold's got a way of lingering, doesn't it? Let's step into my shoes now, 18, alone, and starting to feel eyes on my back. After the funeral, Ellie went back to her place, an apartment an hour east, near Dayton. She'd always been tighter with Jack, soaked up his stories like they were gospel, but she didn't say much that day. Just hugged me, eyes red, and drove off. I stayed in the house, our house, now mine, I guess. A sagging box in the Columbus suburbs, drafty and too quiet. The snow kept falling, blanketing the yard, and I couldn't stop checking the windows. Mike's call stuck with me. Those footsteps, that white shape. He'd laughed it off, but I heard the shake in his voice, same as Jack's when he'd talk about the thing that hunted him. I tried to shake it too, Told myself it was grief playing tricks, Jack's stories worming into my head, mixing with the gin-soaked ghosts of Lisa and Tommy. I'd never seen the white man, not really, just those dents Jack swore by, the ones I'd glimpse in the snow as a kid and chalk up to wind or deer. But that first night alone, I heard something. A crunch, soft but steady, out back where the woods creep close. I grabbed a flashlight, heart thumping, and shone it through the glass. Nothing. Just snow, untouched, gleaming under the moon. No prints, no dents. I laughed, shaky, and locked the door anyway. Days turned into weeks, winter digging in its claws. I got a job at a hardware store, hauling lumber, trying to keep busy. But the cold followed me. Nights at home, sitting by the fire, I'd catch myself listening. Crunch, crunch. Always outside, always when the snow fell thick. I started sleeping with the lights on, a baseball bat by the bed, like some kid scared of shadows. Ellie called once, checking in. "You okay, Sam?" she asked, voice soft. "Yeah," I lied. "Just cold." She paused, then said, "Dad always said it liked the dark. Be careful." I hung up, stomach twisting. She believed him. Maybe more than I did. Then Mike called again. Middle of January, a storm raging outside, wind rattling the windows. "Sam," he said, no laugh this time, "it's out there. Saw it clear as day, tall, white, grinning at me through the barn door. No tracks, just there." His voice cracked. Jack wasn't crazy, was he? I didn't know what to say. Wanted to tell him it was nothing, just old hick tales. But I couldn't. "I don't know, Mike," I said, "but lock your doors." He muttered something about moving south, hung up, and left me staring at the phone, the storm howling louder. That night I saw it, or thought I did. Woke up to a chill, the kind that cuts through walls, and found the back door ajar. Snow had drifted in, dusting the floor, and I swore I heard it. Crunch, crunch, fading into the yard. I grabbed the bat, stepped out, breath fogging in the dark. The snow was smooth, no dents, but there, against the fence, a shape tall and white, black eyes glinting like wet coal. My chest locked up, bat slipping in my sweaty hands. It didn't move, just watched, that slit mouth twitching. I blinked and it was gone, nothing but snow and silence. I ran inside, slammed the door, heart pounding so hard I thought it'd bust. Was it real? I didn't know. Still don't. Jack's stories weren't bright or clever. He wasn't some liar spinning yarns for kicks. He believed it, lived it, and it killed him slow. Lisa, too, and Tommy, and all the rest. Me? I'd spent years calling it crazy, but now, alone in that house, I wasn't so sure. I started packing the next day, clothes, cash, whatever I could fit in a bag. Ohio was done for me. Too much snow, too many ghosts. I'd head south, maybe Florida, somewhere the sun burns the cold away. Mike could come or not, but I wasn't waiting to find out what grinned in the dark. Before I left, I checked the yard one last time. Snow fresh from the night, untouched, except there, by the fence, a single dent, shallow and wide, like something heavy stood still. My blood ran cold. I didn't look back, got in the truck, Jack's old heap, and drove, the rear view empty but heavy. The white man took Jack's life piece by piece, and now it was sniffing around mine. I don't know if it's done, if it'll follow, but I feel it. Out there, waiting, patient as the winter itself. Maybe I'll outrun it. Maybe I won't. All I know is I'm not sticking around to pay his debts. Hey, you've stuck with me this far? Guess we're both suckers for the dark stuff, huh? Last time I was packing my bags, ready to ditch Ohio and the white man's shadow after Jack's stories started bleeding into my reality. Mike's shaky voice, those dents in the snow, that thing at the fence. It was too much. I thought I could outrun it, burn it off in the sun like a bad dream. But the cold's got teeth, and this story's not done biting yet. Let's hit the road with me, see where this ends, or if it ever does. I left Columbus in Jack's old truck, a beat-up Ford that smelled like stale coffee and regret. It was late January, snow still falling, the kind that sticks to your windshield and blurs the world. I didn't tell Ellie, didn't call Mike either. Just threw a duffel in the back and peeled out, heater cranking, headed south. Florida was the plan. Sun, sand, no damn winter to call that thing down on me. The highway stretched out, I-71 to I-75, a gray ribbon cutting through the white, and I kept my eyes on it, radio low, trying not to think about what might be watching from the trees. First night I stopped in Kentucky, some nowhere motel off the interstate, neon flickering in the dusk. The snow had thinned, but the air was still sharp, frost glazing the parking lot. I locked the truck, checked the room's windows twice, and crashed on a lumpy bed, bat by my side. Sleep didn't come easy. Every creak was footsteps, every shadow a grin. Around 3 a.m. I heard it. Crunch, crunch, slow and deliberate outside. My heart slammed against my ribs. I crept to the window, peeled back the curtain, and saw nothing. Just ice and empty cars. No dents, no white shape. I laughed, shaky, told myself it was the wind. But I didn't sleep after that. Day 2, I pushed deeper, past Tennessee into Georgia, the snow fading to slush, then bare ground. The air warmed, heavy with pine and damp earth, and I started breathing easier. Maybe Jack was wrong. Maybe it couldn't follow where the cold didn't reach. I stopped for gas outside Atlanta, sun high, sweat sticking my shirt to my back. Felt good, like shedding a skin. I called Mike from a payphone just to check. "You okay?" I asked, voice rough. "Yeah," he said, too quick. "Haven't seen it since. You?" "Gone south," I said. He chuckled. "Smart kid. Stay there." I hung up, feeling lighter, until I glanced at the truck. A single dent in the dust by the tire, shallow and wide. My stomach dropped. Coincidence, I told myself. Had to be. I hung up, stared at that dent, till the sun baked it away. Jack Steele, his debt. It wasn't his alone anymore. The white man didn't care about borders, didn't care about heat. It followed the cold, sure, but it followed us too. Me, Mike, maybe Ellie if it got bored. I could run again, Hawaii, Brazil, some desert hole. But Mike's words stuck. Snow finds you anywhere. That night I sat up, flashlight on, listening to the wind. Crunch, crunch, fainter now, but there. It wasn't done. Jack paid in blood, Tommy, Lisa, himself, and I was next in line. I'm still here for now, St. Augustine. Sun high most days, but I don't sleep easy. Every cold snap, every shadow, I'm back in that Ohio yard, waiting. The white man's patient. Been at it since Jack was a kid, and it's got time. Me, I've got a bat, a truck, and a prayer it'll miss me in the dark. But deep down, I know, debts don't die with the debtor. They just pass on. Hey, you're still riding this train to the end. Respect for that. We've been through hell with Jack, watched him bleed out his life to that white man, and now I'm carrying the torch, whether I like it or not. Last time I was in St. Augustine, thinking Florida's sun might burn off the curse, but those dents in the sand, Mike's shaky voice, they told me different. The cold's patient, and so's the thing that walks in it. Let's finish this, or at least see how far I can run before it catches up. It's been a year since I landed here, 20 now, scraping by at the bait shop, the shack creaking under every storm. Winter's light in Florida, but it still comes, sneaking in with those rare snaps that turn the air brittle. I've gotten good at ignoring the crunches. Tell myself it's the wind, the waves, anything but him. But Christmas rolls around again. 2 years since Jack went into that ditch, and the cold hits harder. 30s at night, frost on the grass. Unnatural for this coast. I feel it before I hear it. That itch, that pull, like something's waiting just past the light. Christmas Day, I'm off work, alone with a six-pack and a radio playing staticky carols. The wind's up, rattling the windows, and I'm halfway through my third beer when it starts. Crunch, crunch, loud and close, right outside the shack. My gut twists, beer slipping from my hand, crashing on the floor. I grab the flashlight, the bat, and step onto the porch, sand stinging my bare feet. The beam cuts through the dark, dunes, shadows, nothing, then catches it. There, by the water line, a shape. Tall, white, too smooth, black eyes glinting like oil slicks. That slit mouth opens, slow, teeth shining, and I feel it in my head. Debt's not done, Sam. I stumble back, bat raised, voice cracking. I didn't make no deal, I shout, wind swallowing the words. It doesn't move, just stands, grinning, and the voice slides in again. He did. You're his, interest owed. My knees shake. Jack's deal, 40 years ago, a kid in Minnesota snow, trading his life piece by piece. Tommy, Lisa, him, and now me. I swing the bat, wild, screaming. Take it up with him, you bastard. It doesn't flinch, just steps closer, sand shifting under it, leaving those shallow dents I can't unsee. Panic hits. I bolt inside, slam the door, lock it. Useless, I know, but it's instinct. The crunching circles the shack, steady, deliberate, like it's playing with me. I grab the phone, dial Mike, hands trembling. It's here, I choke out when he picks up. Florida, Mike. It found me. He's quiet then. Christ, Sam. I saw it too, last night, barn again. Grinned till I shut the blinds. His voice breaks. We're screwed, ain't we? I don't answer. Can't. Hang up, drop the phone, and sink to the floor, bat across my lap, listening as the steps stop. Silence, thick and wrong. I don't sleep. Sit there till dawn, flashlight dying in my grip. Sun rises, warm and gold, and I check outside. Dents circle the shack, a ring of them. Too many to count. Then nothing, like it walked off into the sea. I laugh, hoarse and hollow, because what else can I do? Mike's right, we're screwed. Jack's debt didn't die with him. It passed down, a family heirloom nobody wants. Ellie might be next, or Mike's kids if he ever has any. It's not just winter, it's us, marked from that first night under the tree. I call Ellie that morning, voice steady as I can make it. You see anything weird? I ask. She's quiet then. Last winter, thought I saw something white outside my window. Dayton got snow. Figured it was Dad's ghost. I swallow hard. Lock your doors, Elle. Move if you can. She laughs, soft. You sound like him. Maybe I do. Maybe that's the problem. I hang up, pack the truck again. Faster this time, no plan, just south. Deeper, anywhere the cold can't touch. I'm on the road by noon, down I-95, past Miami, aiming for the Keys. Heat blasts through the open window, sun searing my skin, but I feel it still. That weight, that watchfulness. A gas station in Key Largo, tank filling, and I see it. A dent in the gravel, shallow, fresh, right by the pump. My breath catches. No snow, no ice, just heat and dust, and it's still here. I drive on, heart hammering, till I hit Key West. End of the line, ocean on all sides, sun relentless. No dents here, not yet, but I don't trust it. I'm writing this now. March, 2 months since that night, sitting in a bar with salt air and no windows to check. Totals what? 7,000 words? 8? Doesn't matter. You've heard it all from Jack's first deal to this, my last stand. I don't know if I've escaped, if I can. Mike's gone quiet, Ellie's still in Dayton, and me? I'm here, waiting for the next cold snap. The white man's out there, patient, grinning, taking what it's owed. Jack paid till he broke, and I'm next. Maybe I'll run again. Hawaii, Brazil, some sun-scorched nowhere. But I hear it, faint in the wind. Crunch, crunch, and I know. Debts don't end. They just find new blood.